So here we are getting ready to take off. And I say take off because we made a pit stop earlier. Bree used the grass, I used the bathroom back there. And now we're getting ready to launch our next little adventure. So what did I do? I hopped on the board, got everything settled, grabbed my paddle, and began to paddle. Simple, familiar motions. But we are not going anywhere. Why aren't we going anywhere? I said to myself. Wow, the wind is powerful. I am not going anywhere. I'm like on a treadmill here. And then I realized I'm still attached to the dock. Maybe you can see that behind me already. My leash is still attached to the dock. It's hard to go places when we're still attached to the dock. And naturally, there's a metaphor in that. There's a metaphor in that. There's a metaphor in everything. I do really enjoy finding the metaphors in things. Putting it on my ankle where it belongs so that we can actually launch. Failure to launch as a result of staying attached to something that I no longer need. Okay, so I have now detached from the dock and I can go wherever I want to go within reason. I am very aware of the usefulness of the metaphor of being attached to something I don't need to be attached to anymore, and it's keeping me from moving forward. There's lots of times during life's journey that happens. And I had one recently. It was a story I was telling myself about what I am supposed to be doing with my life. And it was one of those really deep running narratives that goes so deep you don't even know it's there. I don't know if you have had that experience, but it's so integral. I should speak for myself. It was so integral to who I was, I didn't even know to question it. And it turns out it needed to be questioned because I was anchoring into it and basing a lot of things in my life around this story about what I was gonna need to do to be like fully fulfilled. And it had to do with a lot of things that were yet to come in the future and kind of planning around those things. Like, these are the right things to do, and I'm gonna need to do these things in order to be a good citizen of the world, and in order to be a fulfilled person, and in order to fulfill my life's mission. I'm gonna need to make these things happen, and if they don't happen, something's really wrong. Like, I am not fulfilling the purpose for which I was put on this earth. Anyway, through a series of discoveries, self-discoveries, I realized that this narrative was embedded in me and had never been questioned, but needed to be questioned. And I suppose you could say that I discovered that my leash was still attached to the dock, and it was keeping me from being able to move forward in some important areas of my life. So I was paddling toward this goal and running into some obstacles. And I mean, the big obstacle I was running into is this narrative was sort of chaining me to the dock, so to speak. So when I realized that this was something that needed to be looked at and scrutinized and evaluated, I realized it's not serving me. It's a nice story, but that's all it is. It's a story, and it's something I could choose to believe or not believe. And since I don't think it's actually true or useful, two really important things, true and useful, I think I need to part with this story, with this set of expectations. It was a really hard process. And I spent a couple of weeks like mulling it over and marinating in the possible pain that this was gonna leave me in, from feeling like a big, huge chunk of me, maybe like my whole root had been pulled out if I did this, but I did it. To make a long story short, I did it. I pulled that out pulled that story out, I kind of wondered if I would unravel as a result. Like if you pull a really key thread out of your sweater, will the rest just kind of... And it turns out I didn't unravel. It turns out I felt a great relief. And then a lot of other things fell into place. And then it was like discovering, oh, no wonder I'm stuck and not moving forward. I'm still chained to the dock. And I just decided to stop believing a story that I felt was untrue and unuseful. And then I was able to paddle again and move forward with my life in like some really huge ways. So, oh my gosh, I mean, I can't really overestimate or overstate the importance of that little metaphor that just happened back there, because I feel like it has so much relevance in the very most recent past for me. So I throw that out there as an offering to you that perhaps you'd like to reflect on. Or maybe you just want to celebrate with me and rejoice with me that I was able to, number one, identify that there was something wrong that needed to be dealt with. And I'm celebrating the courage that I had to address it, because it can take a lot of courage to just say, fine, I'm going in, I'm digging in, and I'm going to figure out what it is. And then two, to identify, okay, you know, it took a while to figure out, actually, what is the cause of this inner conflict? It wasn't like an instant aha. And so that's why I used the word self-discovery. I like had some moments of like revelation that I felt like my deep self spoke to the head in me, spoke to my head and my heart. I'm wondering how the light is here. And I was able to figure it out. So that was, you know, like number one, being willing to wrestle. Two, identifying that, oh, I believe something that's kind of like ruling my life. And three, being willing to say, I think that this needs to be examined, and then coming to the conclusion it's not true. And four, making the big like release, letting go. Actually, that might have been five. Maybe that was the fifth step. You know, I wasn't doing all of this according to steps at the time, but maybe step number four was just like doing the thought experiment of what happens if I let go of this? What will happen to me? And sitting with it for a while and continuing to wrestle. It doesn't have to be a systematic process, although I am often very intentional about how I go about things. But in this case, that's kind of how it fleshed out, and now I feel free. And as if on cue, my paddleboard just turned around all by itself and is now free floating. Look, Ma, no hands. In the opposite direction. Good job, paddleboard. Good job, wind. That's kind of a fun and fitting ending to my metaphor. I got freed from the dock. I was able to paddle. And then I did a 180, and now I'm headed right straight back there again, just because of the wind and where it wants to carry me. That's my reflection from the water for the day, and I'm loving it. So grateful for the analogies that spring up out of nature. Just a little look at where we are here. And what's behind us. And we are floating. Free to float. Free to see where the board wants to take me. One of my favorite things to do. All right, so thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing my heart and celebrating with me in my my detachment from what did not serve and my newfound freedom, which is still fairly fresh. Blessings to you. Blessings from the board.